Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 230 of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. The Maxim brothers, Nate and Aaron, here with you. Aaron, how's it going on your end tonight?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing much better. I want to thank Aaron and Mark and Chad for doing Reliving the Extreme last week. And for all of you listeners of this show who didn't get a show for a while there, because I had the worst cold I've ever had in my life. I took a COVID test. It said it wasn't COVID, but I was like, what in the hell is this? Like, it was awful. It was like 10 days. I lost my voice. It was terrible. Anyway, maybe it's just because I'm getting older. The older you get, the worse it gets.
No, there's been some other people that have been getting sick too and being like, it didn't say it's COVID. But shit mutates and turns into something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So who knows?
But before we get started this week, because
how much. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, look how much, like, back in the day, like, the flu would just kill somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we were eventually cool with it or whatever. Maybe that's what's happening with COVID. I don't know.
Anyway. Well, I'm glad whatever it was didn't kill me. I'm still here, still kicking. Before we get into our discussion today, we are going to be discussing Beach Blast 1992, because this week we're doing Beach Blast 92, how it began. And then next week we will be doing Bash at the Beach 2000, how it ended. The first of the series of a pay-per-view, and then the last of the series of a pay-per-view. And boy, did we pick a good one to have a beginning and an ending. But before we do that, I just wanted to mention, because we haven't done a show since, or I haven't done a show since last week. Sad to hear of the passing of Sid Eudy, Sid Vicious, Psycho Sid. I was a wrestling fan when I was a little dude in the 80s, but I was a wrestling fan like a little dude is, where it's just, you know, Hulk Hogan's cool, wrestling's cool. I didn't start becoming like a super fan until I hit my early teen years. So I'm sure that I saw Sid on television in, 89 or whatever, maybe even 88 or something. But just for me, and again, I'm being very complimentary here, because as I said on our Facebook page, the guy was actually, my height of my wrestling fandom was the 1990s, and he was actually one of my favorites of the decade. People can say what they want about his wrestling ability. Doesn't matter. The son of a bitch was over. He had a look, he had a presence. But I was just going to say, just as a matter of record, my first real, like, that I can remember being like totally into Sid was when it was Sid versus Sting at Halloween Havoc 90.
Yeah,
like that's the first, like, because again, like, I know I'd probably seen him on TV, but from my memories, like, what I really remember, the first big memory of Sid was that whole deal with him and Sting.
And him and Sting had good matches. And Sid, I think, sometimes gets a bad rap, because if he was in there with somebody that could get him to do what they needed him to do, or whatever, he had good solid matches, you know.
Yeah.
Like Sting, Shawn, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you put him in the ring with Kevin Nash, it's like, this isn't gonna be a fucking barn burner, and it's not supposed to be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And also, Sid wasn't, even if he could, he would have been a guy that promoters would have said, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, like, nobody wants to see you do that. Like, they want to see you pick the guy up, spin him around, and slam him down. You know, like, before he was doing the power bomb, when he did the initial whirly bird thing or whatever. It's like, that's what they want to see you do. They want to see you in and out. He was, how do I say, like, he obviously had a little bit of longer matches, but like when he initially came into like NWA, WCW, he was like Goldberg before Goldberg at first when they were using him. You know what I mean? He was just like this big, nobody looks like this guy, and he's gonna fuck everybody up. And he didn't need to be the most technical guy in the fucking company, in my opinion.
And
whatever company he was in.
And even though the NWA/WCW is where he started and where he actually spent, I don't know. I guess if you look at it, he spent about 50-50 overall if you break down his time in the business between the two bigger promotions. But to give Vince credit, Vince figured out the perfect way to present him, which was as a psycho, because Vince is probably watching this guy cut these kind of nonsensical promos going, this can work. We'll just say he's fucking psycho.
Yeah, and I think, like, how do I say, like, Vince took a lot of, from everything I understand, he might have not known everybody in the wrestling business. You know what I mean? But he had guys watching things for him and then showing him people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I almost think I think he probably saw the guy, was like, oh my God, look at him. We can make him the next Hulk Hogan. And he showed up and it was like, whoa. He's not Hulk Hogan, but
Right.
he's something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So.
But yeah, I just wanted. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, and he played his part well, and I was always entertained by the guy, and you can't say that that's not what people draw when they say draw me a wrestler. People that don't know anything about it, it's what they would draw you Sid.
Yep. Big tall guy, muscles, square jaw, blonde hair.
Yeah.
He checked all the boxes. And like I said, people can say what they want, be negative if they want to, but I might josh on it. I might make jokes about his silly promos or whatever. That's not hating though. Like people listen to this show know that we joke about people we like,
Yeah.
and I might make some jokes about his promos or whatever, but you'll never hear me say one negative word about Sid because the guy entertained the shit out of me. So rest in peace, Sid. Only 63. It sucks. And the worst part about it was they're finally starting to talk about putting him in the Hall of Fame. And now it's going to have to be like Vader, where we wanted to see him get to be inducted, and now he'll have to be inducted posthumously. So,
I mean, that's not WWE's fault. They didn't, whatever. But yeah, it does suck because it would have been nice to see him get his flowers, but it'll happen.
So rest in peace, Sid Eudy. Just wanted to throw that out there at the beginning of the show to talk about the man. He entertained me, so. But what we're talking about this week, like I said, Beach Blast 1992, WCW. I believe we're in Mobile, Alabama.
Yep.
And the show itself, again, this is the beginning of the Beach Blast / Bash at the Beach. I don't know why. I don't know what the story is for. I don't know if I've ever heard the story for why they changed it from Beach Blast to Bash at the Beach. I know it was Beach Blast 92, 93, and then they changed it to Bash at the Beach at the 94 because that was Hogan Flair. So I don't know if that had something to do with it or what. But anyway, I'm going to say it's still the same pay-per-view, even though it has a different name. It's still the same show.
It is.
Well, this is during a time, and I will have some comments about this, but this is during a time where WCW is in a time of transition because Bill Watts has come in to run the show. And I'm just going to go through this really quick just because I want to make my point, and then we'll get into. But so we open up. This is during the time where WCW would have presenters and then commentators. So you'd have like Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff presenting the show, kind of like a sports cast, So Tony and Eric open the show. Of course, they're dressed in goofy Hawaiian shirts and stuff.
Yeah,
because
the
you
ambiguously gay duo of Eric Bischoff and Tony Schiavone.
And it is actually kind of wild watching this pay-per-view because you have Bill Watts in charge, and then JR, Tony, and Eric are all here, and they are all jockeying for power. It's interesting to think about all that going on behind the scenes when you're watching it. But so Bill Watts comes out. They bring Bill Watts out, and here's the point that I wanted to make really quick, or we can discuss it or whatever. But there's some matches on this show. Obviously, there's an Iron Man match. There's the Falls Count Anywhere match. And Bill Watts, because Bill Watts came into WCW and took away everything that made wrestling cool in 1992. So he has to come out and over-explain why cool things are allowed to happen tonight. Now, here's my big point, my big overarching thing here. Anybody listens to the show, and Aaron knows, I do like a lot of Mid-South wrestling. Not all Mid-South. There are some periods in Mid-South, like there's some things in Mid-South, like Mr. Wrestling 2 in his tighty whities, wrestling in like his 70s or whatever. But I like a lot of Bill Watts booking and a lot of what he did in Mid-South. What I will say is this, other than a couple of things, like I do enjoy the push of Ron Simmons. I do enjoy the fact that we get Gordy and Williams. I am not a big fan of Bill Watts' WCW.
What I'll say is what I mean, I liked him somewhat scaling back on the glitz of it. Like the pay-per-view is whatever, but like when you watch like 92 when he was there with like Saturday Night or whatever, it gets to like it's darker in the building, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I know part of that had to do with the crowds, but I did like I kind of like the Matsby in a way because it was trying to make a lot of times guys that are in the number 2 position want to be like WWE light or WWE whatever the number 1 guy is light. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's emulate what this guy's doing. And he was like, let's not. Let's kind of go the other side and say, hey, our guys are badasses because they're landing on concrete or whatever. There's certain things that I didn't like, and we'll get into it. But no, I mean, I don't have the same feel for it that you do. Like I don't mind it so much,
Mm-hmm.
but there are certain things that like when you have to explain why something is, like if you have to over explain why something is, you probably shouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking I hope what I'm saying makes sense, because he was out there like he was like a word salad. Like
Yeah. And Bill likes to be on camera, and he likes
yes,
to
he
get
does.
himself out there.
He likes the sound of his own voice.
He's the only promoter in 1992 that was going to appear on TV in Zubars and a fanny pack. But
Let's hook him up.
Let's hook him up. That crowd didn't give a shit.
Well, then after all of that, of course,
Jim Ross then explains it to us.
Yes, Jim Ross, always the explainer for Bill Watts. So Jim Ross, old Pumpkinhead Jim Ross, he's our play-by-play guy, and he says he's going to be joined by Jesse the Body Ventura, who's on the beach. He's not on the beach. He's on the stage that looks like the beach with some hookers.
He's on a false beach with some fake or some real hookers. And I think this was his first. I think this was his first WCW pay-per-view, because I think they debuted him at that Clash.
Well, no, they announced his signing and brought him out. I think it's Super Brawl.
Okay.
Because he's with like little skinny ass Kip Fry, because Bill Watts hadn't come in yet.
All right.
But he does. I think this is his first, because I think he comes in at Super Brawl. He actually does the Clash, but this is his first pay-per-view. Right. I believe.
And say what you want, but at that time it was a big deal.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You know what I mean?
Like
absolutely.
Like this was the first guy that company got that was like, holy shit, you know what I mean? Like this Jesse's there now, you know what I mean? It's not as big as like when Hogan came in 94, but honestly, it's pretty close, or it could have been.
Yeah, I would say pre-Hogan, probably the two biggest, like, moving from the WWF to WCW are probably Jesse Ventura and Rick Rude.
Yeah.
Pre-Hogan. Anybody else that came in, you know, you're Greg Valentine, and I'm not dissing them, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So the opening match is for the light heavyweight title, which the WCW light heavyweight title is not. Definitely does not complement what Bill Watts' vision of WCW is. But the match here is Brian Pillman, Flying Brian, of course, as he's still called back then, Flying Brian, defending against Scotty Flamingo. Those of you that know or don't know, Scotty Flamingo, the prior gimmick to Raven. This match was good. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
It was as good. It was, how do I say it? It's as good as I thought it could be with them being limited with what they were limited to. That was a long, weird sentence. But I think if he didn't want to do the top rope thing, it's fine. But it should have been, we want to make this division different so these guys can do it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You say in the light, and you even that makes it something that's marketable. Remember in the light heavyweight division, they can go off the top rope.
Yeah, these guys are gonna go all over the fucking place.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna be bananas. Like, we can't have a 350-pound guy coming off the top rope, but these guys, like, they're 230 and under, so whatever, however you want to explain it. But I think it limits what these guys were able to do, especially what Brian Pillman was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because this era, Brian Pillman, man, it's like he had fucking springs in his legs, man. Like, that dude could fly so fucking far.
Well, and the thing, the craziest thing about like how crazy, stupid, fucking talented he was before he had his accident and stuff was Brian Pillman could go in here and have this kind of a match with Scotty Flamingo and do really well. And then he could go in and wrestle heavyweight style with Lex Luger and have a hell of a match too,
Yeah.
He was kind of like Eddie Guerrero in that respect. Like Eddie Guerrero could wrestle like a cruiserweight or wrestle like a heavyweight, and both ways it worked.
And he was also, to compare him to another guy later on, it would be Kurt, because Pillman wasn't a professional wrestler, like professional wrestling fan, or you know what I mean? Like, he was a football guy, and then he got into it, and he was just automatically good at it.
Right.
I mean, it's nuts. He's just one of those guys that just like he started on what, like 88, 87, 88, and by like 89, he's fucking wrestling Ric Flair and shit. It's like, what the hell? This is insane. And he was never bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like Kurt. Like, it wasn't just the athletics of it. He caught on to all of it. The personality of it, the whatever. Like, he got it all.
But yeah, this, like I said, this match was decent. I don't know if you have any specific notes on it. I pretty much just have the finish written down. I just put decent match, not as good as I thought it could be, and then I wrote the finish down. So I don't know if there were any spots that stuck out to you.
Not really. I mean, like I said, I think it hurt just by them being limited to the second rope. But that bump Pillman does onto the stage with his going like head first is nuts.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what costs Pillman the title. WCW back then had the ramp that went to the ring, and Brian Pillman tries to do a flying something or other over the top rope onto Flamingo, but Flamingo moves. Pillman lands on his face, which pretty much takes Pillman out of it, and then Flamingo sends him in for like a kind of a weak-looking flying knee, gets the pin, and Scotty Flamingo becomes the light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, the knee sucked.
Do you know why the ramp went away?
I'm not sure.
Hulk Hogan didn't like it.
Oh, well, good for him. I thought the ramp was cool.
Yeah, I did too. But Hulk Hogan didn't like it, so they got rid of it when he came in. I wish I could go to my job and be like, I don't like that. And they just get rid of it.
I don't like the ramp. We have to have it for legality reasons. I don't like it.
And then after that match, we get started with the Beach Blast Bikini Blowout Contest or whatever. It is
I mean,
Missy.
they call it a bikini contest, which it's not really because there's 3 stages to it.
Yeah, it should have
There's
been
like an
called a
evening gown,
swimsuit contest or something.
but there's even an evening gown, so it should have been like a beauty pageant.
True.
And excuse me, the funniest part is Jesse Ventura saying that Johnny B. Bad should not be judging the bikini contest and accuses him of not even liking women.
I think at one point he says he shouldn't be judging this; he should be in it.
Yeah, like that's later on, but yeah, at first he's just blatantly just like accused as Johnny B. Bad of being a homosexual, so he shouldn't be judging this contest. And Jim Ross is like, well, I believe he likes women, so let's go up to Johnny B. Bad.
Yeah, let's put this to bed. So yeah, this stuff happens. It's Missy Hyatt and Medusa. I don't know. I didn't write anything down. I mean,
well, the evening gown part is like whatever. I will say, like, I know I crap on Johnny B. Bad a lot, or shit on him, however you want to say it. This is the only time I enjoyed it. Like when he first came in and was with Teddy Long, up until like they totally like really took the camp off of him,
Yeah.
But I didn't mind him when he would be like, "Oh, shut up, you big old bear," like that type of shit. And be like,
Yeah.
"I'm so pretty, it should be illegal." Like I didn't mind that Johnny B. Bad. But when they just turned him into like Johnny B. Bad, and he was like just a charismatic guy or whatever, it's like, nah, you suck now. They took everything that was okay about your character.
And I enjoyed him a little longer than you. He's one of the few guys that like I enjoyed him pretty much most of his WCW run, and then I disliked him once he became the Wild Man in the WWF. Still a good wrestler till he had his knee injury. He was pretty dynamic in the ring, but
to me, it was kind of like when they took Goldust and like took the is he or isn't he gay thing away from it. And like he was still good. Like I'll never say Mark Merrow was like a bad wrestler or whatever, but like, and I'll never say Goldust wasn't like a cool worker or whatever. But he was boring from like that. He was boring in that time that he was like started feuding with Hunter.
Yes.
Until he became like the crazy wacky ass Goldust.
Well, see, and I would even say like the crazy wacky Goldust had some moments, but even that isn't great to me. For me, he stopped. I stopped. Like everybody knows, I really don't like the feud with Hunter. But from that point until, to be honest with you, until he starts teaming up with Booker in 2003. Yeah, then I don't know. It just there was a time there where it just
I liked him and Luna. I was like, this is fucking insane. I like insane shit. So I was down with it.
The next match on this show is Terry Taylor. He's going as the tailor-made man in WCW right now. And he's going to be facing Ron Simmons. And I wrote down, I'm very happy that Ron's coming out to the Doom music because that's one of my favorite entrance themes of all time. And it's one of the worst switches of music ever is when like they take the Doom music away from him and give him that stupid rap song. But anyway.
Don't step to Ron.
Yeah. Boo. Give me the Doom music. Like, I don't know. I just like that. I know I'm harping on it, but that is one of the coolest fucking entrance themes of all time. Like I get excited when they come out and it's 30 years later, but when Doom comes out, I'm fucking bobbing. Fucking love it, man. I love that fucking jam.
And with how much Vince liked horns, I'm sure I can't understand why he never tried to use it again. And like you said, Terry's the tailor-made man. I mean, he's supposed to be wearing the finest clothes and the finest broads or whatever. Uh, he's doing a $1 million man gimmick without doing a $1 million man gimmick.
I actually have written down here and it's nothing against Terry, but he's essentially the great value $1 million man. He's the bargain dollar man.
Yeah. Like they just try to I don't know. After he left UWF or whatever, or the NWA, that anytime somebody else got him, they try to make him something like other than what he should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm a bigger fan of Terry Taylor than you are, but it's like just let him be the cocky Terry Taylor. Why's he gotta be the computerized man of the '90s or the tailor-made man or the motherfucking Red Rooster? Why's he gotta be any of this?
And this is one of those examples, that kind of a gimmick is one of those examples. Like Aaron was saying earlier about people trying to be like number one. WCW had this time in between Dusty Rhodes booking and leaving JCP and Eric Bischoff taking over. And I know they did the Dungeon of Doom shit and all that, but what I'm saying is they had this time where they were trying to do cartoony gimmicks like Vince, and nobody knew how to do cartoony gimmicks but Vince. You know, like Vince could make the $1 million man or Tugboat or whatever work. And over here on the other side, you've got the tailor-made man, Norman. Like the gimmicks were fucking terrible.
And until like '94, I'd say, or even I'd say '95, the country was still divided, you know.
Yeah.
And people below that line of the country, they didn't want that type of wrestling.
Right.
It's not what they liked. They liked like Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard versus the Rock and Roll Express getting nitty gritty. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they wanted. They didn't want fucking Norman the Lunatic and fucking Big Josh. That's not what they wanted.
Black blood.
Black blood from a little town in France. He's like, black blood.
I'm from France.
I'm from France. From a little town in France. It's like, what the fuck is going on? And why is Hercules Super Invader? What the fuck is happening?
Boy, you got a panty on your head.
You got a panty on your head. Just make him Hercules.
Decent match here. Ron Simmons winds up winning over Terry Taylor. Match didn't mean anything other than to get the push started for Ron Simmons.
Yep.
And he cuts a good promo afterwards. And I wrote down here, I think that I don't want to put this. This guy, Ron Simmons, is like one of the guys that is I don't want to put this. He should be, if you watch him, if you listen to him, if you look at him, he was the victim of a lot of bad booking, because he should be a guy that is in the class. And I don't care if anybody says I'm wrong. He's the guy that should be in that top 10% class of pro wrestlers of all time, with Hogan and Flair. Yep. And he just never, and God bless Simmons, or God bless Watts. He was the one guy, and Vince used him well as a heel, but he was never going to be the world champion there. And it just, I don't know. It's a shame.
It is.
And I'm sure Ron's perfectly happy in his life, because he still gets paid every time they sell one of them damn t-shirts. You know what I mean? It's not like his career didn't do him well. I just think that he should be in an upper echelon that he's not in.
And he debuted, and I'm not saying this at all, like whatever, but by the time he got to Vince, he had already been there. He had already been wrestling for like a decade,
mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think he got that push from Watts, and then Bill Watts fucked everything up. And then that company, anything that had Watts's fucking fingerprints on it, they wanted nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they wanted to get rid of anything that reminded them of Bill Watts. And
then he
everything
wound
by the
up.
time,
He also
yeah.
wound up being one of those guys like Rude and Ventura that did not want anything to do with WCW Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Get me the fuck out of here. He fucking turned him heel on Ice Train and shit, you know?
Yeah, it's like, what am I doing?
Ugh.
They're like, he was probably like, is any of this leading to me working with Hogan? And they were like, oh no.
No,
not
you may
doing
not,
that.
you may never even talk to Hulk Hogan. Damn. But anyway, good shit from Ron Simmons here. Great promo with Jim Ross after the fact. Do you have anything else to say about this part of the show before we move on?
I mean, I'd say it was it did what it needed to do, and it was like a 2.5 star type match. You know, wasn't anything great, but wasn't bad. It got Ron on the show.
The next match is Marcus Alexander Bagwell against Greg Valentine.
Like, why?
Yeah, you're right. Why? Why is this on the show? I mean, I understand maybe because I mean they just recently have acquired Greg Valentine, and he's not the name he was in 1985, but he's still a name. So maybe get him on the show. But why is he wrestling Marcus Alexander Bagwell on the pay-per-view?
And why is Marcus Alexander Bagwell wrestling Greg Valentine? Like, I don't know what this does for any of them. I don't know. And like, I forgot about this match, so I'm watching it. And I'm like, oh, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, Marcus Bagwell getting a nice little victory over Greg Valentine. This will do him some good,
Nope.
and it doesn't hurt Greg Valentine any. It's like, oh no, Greg Valentine wins a very boring match with a figure 4. Great.
Probably the best little part of the run for Valentine at this time in WCW is I did like his little short-lived tag team with Terry Taylor.
Yeah.
I think they win the U.S. tag titles at some point. And I mean they have a nice little tag. They worked pretty well as a tag team. It doesn't last very long, but again, it was fine while it lasted. It was fun for some good tag matches on Saturday night. But yeah, like Aaron says, Valentine wins this figure 4. Nothing to write home about. The next match, however, is fucking fantastic.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they showed like the previous stuff with Cactus fighting Van Hammer in that Falls Count Anywhere match where they wound up like out in the barn or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Jim Ross like voiceover and ended up saying like this is what Sting's going up against. Like,
Yes.
I don't know. That was kind of neat, I thought.
But yeah, the next match is non-title because Sting is the WCW World Champion, and throughout this pay-per-view, they are talking about how Sting is going to be facing Vader at the Great American Bash for the title coming up. But it's Sting versus Cactus Jack, non-title, Falls Count Anywhere on the Gulf Coast is how it's booked or how it's presented. Easily one of Sting's best matches ever.
Oh, definitely. It might be his best match ever.
And I know a lot of people. I get people like, damn man, why don't you like Sting? People always think I don't like him. I don't dislike Sting. I just think Sting's overrated. I like Sting. Sting is fine, but Sting's one of those guys where I am. I really dig Sting based on who he's wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He got lucky in his career where he got fantastic opponents. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I'm not, but Flair took a liking to him, so he got Flair, and then he got to work with Vader, and him and Vader complemented each other very well. And then, I mean, but anyway, I don't want to get off on a career retrospective of Sting. I just long way to get to. You're probably right. This is probably Sting's best match. He had some great matches with fucking Vader, but
Oh, he did. And I don't want to. This might sound silly too, but you know what else I think might be one of the contributing factors of Sting's career and how long it went and everything like that
because he stuck
is
around with WCW.
well that and um he's just everybody says he's just a really nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he just gets along to get along, and as long as you're paying me, man, I'll do whatever you need me to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm cool. Whatever you need me to do. You're not gonna be the champ anymore. All right, that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. You know.
You know what
So,
I really appreciate about this Falls Count Anywhere match? And I've watched this match probably 25, 30 times, okay? But what I wrote down here in my notes watching it this time around, what I really appreciate about this match is it's realistically short. Like
yeah,
a lot of times matches like this, guys they drag it out too long. Like it's like Falls Count Anywhere with weapons and stuff, and here we are 25 minutes in, and these two guys are still fighting it out. This is like 11 minutes long. Like it's a perfect length. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's not like it's not like Cactus gets jobbed out, but it's just like around 11 minutes was the perfect length for this match. Like it's perfect.
yeah. And they went balls to the wall right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would Sting get in the ring? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or I mean, Cactus get in the ring. Like Cactus waited for him on the ramp. You know what I mean? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
why would Cactus even get in there? He doesn't want to get in that ring. Yeah, I mean, so I enjoyed it, and it's one of my favorite matches, and I think it's Sting's best match. And it was a match that when you were a kid, if you found it on a tape or something, you'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And it was also Mick's favorite match up until his match with Shawn at Mind Games.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mick mentions in his book that two of the greatest compliments he ever got were that Sting told him this was his favorite match, I believe.
Yeah.
And Shawn kind of sort of told him the same thing about the Mind Games match. So it's like,
Yeah, and then he said when he talked to Sting, Sting was upset because he found out that he was no longer Mick's favorite match. He was like, oh man. Yeah, I mean, it's a good back and forth match, and Sting doesn't oversell for Cactus, and Cactus doesn't oversell for him. And I like the fact that there's a couple times even like Sting. Um, I also like in matches where like somebody going for something catastrophic to the other guy ends up backfiring on them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like I really like, and it's a crazy spot, and Sting should get some kudos for it. I liked when he went for that Stinger splash off the ramp onto the apron, like outside of the apron of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And hit the turnbuckles and fell over and like it went over the top rope to the outside of the ring. I was like, that was fucking nuts. The crazy ass bump.
And I also really enjoy the finish because it in the narrative of the match and the Falls Count Anywhere and the chaotic of it and everything, Sting actually gets the win pretty much out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
he catches Cactus because Cactus just had him down like 45 seconds before Sting catches him with that clothesline out of nowhere, and Sting's like, I got to roll this fucker up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciate pretty much everything about this match. It's fantastic.
I agree.
Then we get Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff doing some analysis of the match afterwards, discussing it. And again, I like this. I actually don't mind even though sometimes they make them too long, I actually don't mind the panel thing that the WWE does in their modern pay-per-views, because it does feel more like a sport. We take a little breather during the show and the panel. Now, WWE probably spends too much time on the panel, but
Yeah.
I enjoy it. It gives it more of a sports feel. So I like the fact that WCW did this back in the day. And then we get a match that I wrote down when my notes on the match are, well, about halfway through, it's like, man, how good is this shit?
Oh yeah.
It's an Iron Man match. It's non-title, not for the United States Championship.
This is one point where like a belt's out on the line like that I'm like, I actually like that because it's like neither one of these guys in this match care about the belt. They just want to prove they're the better athlete than the other guy.
Yes, it's about pride. It's not about the title. It's about pride.
Yeah. Steamboat does bring out his stupid fucking family though.
It's Ricky Steamboat versus Ravishing Rick Rude. Yes.
Why do you keep bringing them out with you? It'd be so cool if you didn't have your stupid family with you.
Cut it out.
I shouldn't call him stupid. I don't know, but
No, you're right though. It's nice that you have a family. We like it, and we don't mind even seeing little video features maybe of you, with your family. Stop bringing them to ringside.
Yeah. You're stupid prom. You're not Miss Elizabeth. Nobody likes you.
Well, eventually Ricky got fed up with her shit.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, it's like at this point, it's like, girl, nobody wants you around.
But yes, this is a 30-minute Iron Man match. Rick Rude, Ricky Steamboat. Aaron, any nuts and bolts of this match that you want to make note of here?
Just that I wrote down the timestamps of the finishes. I can do that if you want me to, but
Sure.
it is back and forth, but it's really good. And mind you, obviously the clock started at 30, so at 22:15, Rude gets the pinfall. He gets the first victory, and then I like the fact. Listen to this, and you're gonna see what I like about this. 22:15, Rude gets a pinfall. 21-21, Rude gets a pinfall. Like I like the fact that like I don't want to say it. Like a guy will hit it, and sometimes in like an Iron Man match, a guy will hit a move, he'll get a pinfall or whatever, and then he'll say something else, and like right away the wrestler kicks out again. It's like, well, why would he kick out again right away?
Yeah, well, and that was actually one of my questions I wrote down here. As far as an Iron Man match goes, do you prefer lots of finishes or minimal finishes?
It depends, and it depends on how these guys did it, because they have 7 of them in this match, but they're like they have 7 decisions in this match, but I like them because like Rude gets 2 victories right out the bat, and then goes to the top rope because he's already 2-0. Goes to the top rope, drops down on Steamboat, gets the disqualification because he's like, "Fuck it, I'm already 2 up anyway. I can give up 1 fall," and then gains the pinfall again at like he gets DQ'd at 2017, and then he gets another pinfall on Steamboat at 1945. So he's already up 3-1, and Steamboat didn't even technically get anything because he got disqualified. But then at like 12:21, Steamboat gets a pinfall, so it's 3-2. 9:35, Steamboat gets another pinfall, so now it's 3-3. And then we get down to the wire, and we're at the last 30 seconds of the match, and at the 32-second mark, Steamboat gets a pinfall and gets the victory and ends up winning 4-3. And the match is just fantastic. And I like the fact that he only won by 1 over, because at the time Rude thought, oh, this is going to help me, but at the end of the day, it fucked him over at the end.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's a master telling of professional wrestling in a 30-minute period.
And it is like you say, and I wrote that down. The reason I asked that question is because I wrote down as I was watching this match, it's other than the complete opposite, and I know people like to dog it, but the complete opposite, the two best Iron Man matches ever are this one and Brett and Sean, because they're the best ways of doing both results. Whereas you have one with Brett and Sean where they go the whole 60 minutes, there's no finish, they go into the sudden death. This one, they have multiple finishes, but like you said, it was the smarts of Rude, like, okay, I just pinned the guy. I'm not just going to walk around and brag about it. I'm going to pin him again, while he's still down. Because what I hate is because the premise of an Iron Man match, sometimes if there's multiple finishes, it's not believable, because if these two guys would have a 30-minute match, they'd only have one finish. So why should I expect that they're only going to have 14 finishes in 30 minutes? So the way that you can have two ways of doing it, but either way, you have to make it make sense. And I think this match and the Brett Sean match are the best examples of the opposite ways of doing it.
I agree, and I kind of had that in my final note, so I'll just say it now. This is my favorite Iron Man match. I like this one more than Sean and Brett.
And I guess I think to be honest with you, I would actually tend to agree, because this match, and it's probably because one is 30 minutes and one is 60, but this match never drags. But as good as they were and as good as it is, there are times during Brett and Sean where it drags. Like, because of how many times I've watched it, there's times where I know, I can fast forward about 5 minutes here.
And it's a different story of a match too. Like, they weren't selling Brett and Sean as like being like a blood feud or whatever, but Steamboat and Rude at this time, like, these guys were gonna go, like, their characters would want to beat the shit out of each other, because this was like when Rude had hit him with that like fucking hellacious chair shot on Saturday night's main event, and Paulie brought out those girls saying they slept with Steamboat, and so like this was like a hardcore blood feud, you know what I mean? So they would be wanting to kick the shit out of each other. Like, where Brett and Sean were trying to just prove who the better wrestler was. These guys were trying to prove who the better man was. Like, I'm a bigger man than you.
Well, like we said, this match is fantastic. The next thing I have written down here is round 2 of the bikini contest.
I have written down Missy Hyatt was ridiculous. Like, god damn. Like, they were like, now it's gonna be the swimsuit portion of it. Like, and like Medusa came out in her little swimsuit or whatever, like her one piece, but then like Missy came out in like some purple bikini. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think this is the part. This is the segment where Johnny B. Bad's like, look at those two big, beautiful blue eyes.
Oh my. I'm surprised Ventura wasn't like, it turned him wrong.
Yeah. Missy Hyatt got him to pray the gay away.
But yeah, you can't, like I said, I'm never gonna be mad about a hot chick being in a bikini.
Right.
I got no problem with that.
All right, so the next match here is a 6-man tag team match. And of course, 92, we are still well within the heyday of the Dangerous Alliance in WCW.
Yeah, one of my notes is that this is like the most WCW match on this show. Like these 6 guys being in it, you know, like I know when when I think of WCW, my mind doesn't go like right to like the NWO and Goldberg and fucking DDP and my mind goes to like Luger, the Steiners, Sting, Sid,
Wyndham.
that era of it.
Same.
Bobby and Arn, Stunning Steve, like those
because
guys.
Again,
that's what it goes to me.
Because again, like I said, you and I were of course we were wrestling fans when we were little dudes, but we were real wrestling fans in the 90s. Like I remember as a little dude seeing like World Championship Wrestling on Saturday night, like the Crockett era. I remember seeing those guys back then, but I don't remember being a big fan until this era. You know what I mean? Like a real fan, not just a kid watching wrestling. Of course, I go back now and I watch it and I've studied it and I've watched it all and with adult eyes and everything. But yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's the WCW purple and gold banner. It's the ramp. It's the clash. It's the clashes. You know, because back then, even though as a little dude, I was a bigger WWF fan. Watching the Clash of Champions, that was like watching a pay-per-view for free because like it wasn't just the name wrestlers wrestling the nobodies. It was the name wrestlers wrestling the name wrestlers on TV,
and it was and it wasn't like watching a pay-per-view for free. It was like watching something. I don't want to say it. Like I know it was like watching a pay-per-view for free, but we didn't even get to watch pay-per-views.
Right.
My mom was like, "I'm not paying $30 for you guys to watch wrestling." That's stupid. I have better things to spend money on. And back then, you were like, "Oh man," but when you look back on it now, you're like, "She's right. She was right."
But yeah, I loved the WWF, but I loved Clash of the Champions. Wednesday night, 8:05. My little ass is gonna be planted in the toy room watching Clash of Champions.
That's right. We don't gotta descramble this and watch it on a fuzzy vision.
But yes, the 6-man tag is Steve Austin, Bobby Eaton, and Arn Anderson. What a fucking team. Against Dustin Rhodes, Barry Windham, and Nikita Koloff, with Ole Anderson as the referee.
It gets no more WCW than that. At least this era WCW.
Absolutely agree.
And it's a really good match.
Yes, it is. And then the match itself, like Aaron said, it's really good. And then during the match, the finish of the match, essentially one of Bill Watts' new rules rears its ugly head. Because Arn Anderson gets disqualified for coming off the top rope. And of course, they make a point of the fact that Ole Anderson was fair because he disqualified his cousin. But do you have any any specific spots or anything from the match that you wanted to mention?
No, it just Dustin did the Ricky Morton of the match. Like he sold most of the match, which should have been. And like you said, it was just I think this match was a match to get all these guys on the show, which isn't a bad thing. And then it got over the top, it was another thing to get over the top rope rule and get this Ole Anderson's going to be an impartial troubleshooting senior official thing. So I mean, it did its job. It got their mid card guys on the show, and tried to get over the top rope DQ thing, and Ole is the senior ref, so did what it was supposed to do.
Jesse Ventura then after the match tells JR that he's going to go help Johnny B. Bad with the final round of the bikini contest. We get Eric Bischoff interviewing Rick Steamboat. Steamboat, of course, says he wants to challenge Rude for the U.S. title now that he's beat him in this Iron Man match. Paulie Dangerously comes out and essentially tells him, no more title shots for you, Ricky Steamboat. We're done with you. And then Cactus Jack comes out and attacks Steamboat. And I honestly forgot about this because I don't think this ever leads to an actual match.
I think they have one.
Maybe I'm just forgetting, but I had no memory of this. Like Cactus Jack and Ricky Steamboat, I had no memory of this. So
if they don't wrestle on a Clash, I think they might have a couple things on like Saturday night. But I don't think they ever had like a pay-per-view big thing. I think that this was like a holdover because I don't think they wanted to go Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat in the Iron Man match, and then let's roll right into another Rick Steamboat Rick Rude match. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is good booking.
The only sorry, I was just curious. I wanted to if I look up Ricky Steamboat versus Cactus Jack. It's funny because this happens. Okay, so that Ricky Steamboat versus Cactus Jack. No, that's still before this. Okay, so Ricky Steamboat, at least what's available to watch on YouTube, because I didn't look on the. Obviously, you can't do like a search on Peacock anymore. You used to be able to search on the network and actually try to find a specific match. But anyway, every match that's coming up in this search that I'm doing on Google between Ricky Steamboat and Cactus Jack actually happens on WCW Worldwide, and both matches are before this even takes place. So I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know either. So okay,
not a big deal. I'm harping on something that doesn't matter. But so now we get round 3 of the bikini contest. Jesse Ventura and Johnny B. Bad do the narrating. Or do the hosting here, and somehow I think my handwriting is terrible here, so it's probably a few beers in by this point. Somehow they're alluding to the fact that Missy is naked. She can't come out here. She can't come out and do this, right?
Yeah, they show some spot like on the camera where you see some chicanery going on, like her the curtains of her little changing booth are moving, but I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they can even ever find out, but somebody's stolen her bikini.
And Johnny B. Bad she's just so until we get the big reveal, we are assuming that she's just letting Johnny B. Bad look at her naked because he keeps looking in there going, oh, you don't want her to come out. He's oogling at her naked is what we're supposed to believe. Like, how has she not sprayed him with mace yet?
Well, because she thinks he's probably gay too. So
she's like, oh, it's just my gay friend.
Yeah, it's just my gay friend. It's all good. And he's like totally faking it. I found this match apparently happened on August 15th, 1992.
Steamboat and Cactus.
Yeah.
Why does Steamboat and Cactus only wrestle on Worldwide?
I don't know.
But anyway,
but yeah, I think
apparently they did have a match then, so that's cool. I just didn't remember it.
It's like these two great guys just had this little feud on Worldwide Wrestling. It's like, okay, so only people in like Peachtree Avenue or whatever got to see it. But yeah, that's what it's alluded to, is that somebody stolen their bikini. Johnny Vad's looking at her. he's pretending to be gay so he can keep looking.
And then Missy does come out, and she is clad in a bikini that Jesse Ventura says is made of his scarves, which he says like 74 times. That's my scarves. That's my scarves.
We get it.
Right.
It's your
Then
scarves.
he comes back to the booth. He's like, "You see that, Jim Ross? He was wearing my scarves." Quit harping on it. Jesus Christ. Let it go, Jesse.
And she's declared the winner, but then Johnny B. Bad and Jesse go in the tent with Medusa. So I don't know if she just like took care of them real quick. I don't know what that was about. But I'm like, okay, what is going on?
Missy won, so she doesn't have to get like oogled by Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, this was, like I said, I'm never gonna get mad about Missy Hyatt being in the bikini, especially like 92 through 96 Missy. But I just was like, this was what it was.
It was fine. It was fine for like in between the matches to have something going on. It's supposed to be a beach show, so girls in bikinis on the beach. It makes sense. It's not. I mean, I wasn't dissing it at all. I just I didn't take I didn't take detailed notes.
Yeah, keeps the crowd entertained in between stuff. I've always said it that say whatever you want to say about the Nitro Girls or whatever, but I think that's one of the greatest ideas ever in the history of televised wrestling.
Yep.
Like, we're gonna have to have Tony and Bobby and Mike talk for 3 minutes about what's going on in this show to reset it. We don't want the crowd to be dead while this is happening. What can we do? Oh, send 6 big tittied women out there and have them dance in little outfits.
Yeah, I don't remember who they said brought it. I don't remember who they said brought it up. But if you read, did you read the Nitro book?
Yeah, I think it was Al. I think it was Eric's idea.
Well, and it was essentially the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And there'll never be any downtime. It's a genius idea. It's a better idea than the NWO.
So the main event of this show is the World Tag Team titles, and they are talking about the NWA Tag Team Championship tournament that's going to start after this show. Like I think they say on Tuesday or something, but this is the WCW World Tag Team Championships. And for those of you that have not seen this, what's wrong with you? Again, I mentioned it earlier about the things that I did like about Bill Watts' reign as the booker of WCW. And one of those things is having Steve Williams and Terry Gordy featured. And in this match, it's Steve Williams and Terry Gordy against the Steiner brothers. And it's not just Gordy and Williams versus the Steiner brothers. It's Gordy and Williams versus peak fucking Steiner brothers.
Yeah, my first note is 4 fuck around and find out motherfuckers. Like, it's peak all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just is. It's a little bit before Brody got sick. It's when Doc was he was always a badass, but this was when he was pure Dr. Death, badass son of a bitch. He'll fuck you up if he needs to guy. And it's obviously Rick and Scotty just being freaks. So yeah, it's like you don't get, if you want to watch just professional wrestling, there's not a lot much more than you can get out of this match.
Yeah, and this has nothing. It has nothing to do with this match, but I talked about earlier that I like to watch Mid-South, and I was watching some like early Dr. Death in Mid-South a few days ago. It's so funny to watch, like to go back and watch like Dr. Death in like 80 or whatever in Mid-South, 84, early 85, or like most of 84, before he starts thinning out because it's Fat Dr. Death. And he's still such a badass, but he's fat.
Yeah, because he was still doing amateur wrestling or whatever.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
But I don't know. It's just funny because you forget about it until you see it. Like you always think of this Dr. Death. You know what I mean? He's big, but he's slimmed down or whatever. And then when you watch something from like the early 80s or whatever, and it's like he's so big. It's like every time I forget that he was like kind of plump.
Yeah, it's kind of like you know who else is like that? It's not as severe, but you know who else is like that? Brett.
Yeah. It was
like when Brett first got you forgot about chubby Brett. Sometimes you forget about chubby Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, you forget about fat Bret Hart, and then you forget about fat Steve Williams. Sometimes you forget about fat Shawn Michaels.
Yeah,
it was fat Shawn Michaels. Like I thought that's so fun. It's one of my favorite things that ever happened to Shawn was when they sent him home because they said he had steroids, and they said he was on steroids when he was the fattest he's ever. He's like, this is the most out of shape I've ever been in my life.
I have a fucking pot belly.
I have a pot belly and I'm hairy, and you're sending me home. You just said I'm on steroids. I'm in the worst shape of my life. I'm drinking beer and eating chicken with Nash. You know, it's like I'm matching him beer for beer and chicken for chicken.
Nash is 7 foot tall. He can fucking do that.
Yeah. Fattest he ever got. And they were like, you need to go home. You tested positive for steroids.
I call bullshit.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yes, this match is oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to get back to the match too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this match is again, Aaron's better at taking like actual match notes than me, but it's a fantastic and it's one of those like you can take you can take an expression from today. We'll take it from Sheamus. If you watch Dr. Death and Gordy against the Steiners, anytime it is banger after banger after banger.
Yeah, and like I said, I do have a lot of notes. We don't need to go over a lot of them, but I do like the fact that, like I said, I like when a company goes back to its past sometimes, and Ross does mention that Rick Steiner and Dr. Death were partners in the Varsity Club, and they have old heat from that, and Doc ended up taking Ricky out on the apron and hitting that big shoulder block on him and smashing him into the wooden ramp. And I don't know why it is, but to me, it was cool that, like, I don't even know if you noticed it, but like, you know, like in tag team matches, like tag team partner will be like, come on, buddy, you got this, get up, you know, like that. Bammer and Doc didn't yell at each other that way. Like, there are certain points where like Doc's like get your goddamn ass up.
Yeah.
like they're like, what is wrong with you? Get up. And like Bammer's like yelling at him too. Like they're not
come
like,
on, man.
Like they're not encouraging each other with positivity. They're encouraging each other with like, if you don't get up, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yeah, we don't do that shit around here. This is not a safe space work environment in this tag team.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just, and like you said, it was just four guys just beating the shit out of each other, and the only thing I didn't like was the finish, and I know it had to be what it had to be because you don't want to either one of these guys to lose. But I don't know if you want me to jump the shark and go into the finish or not.
No, go ahead.
I just don't like a show ending on a draw.
This is my exact notes. My exact notes here. This match only loses points for me by being the main event and being a time limit draw. It should have been, if it was going to be a time limit draw, that's fine, but it should have been in the middle of the card.
It should have been where Sting and Cactus were.
Let Sting and Cactus be the last match.
Yeah. And I know it was ego or whatever for Watts, because he's got his boy in there or whatever. But it's like, this is gonna be a draw. You shouldn't have ended the show on a draw.
I agree. As a matter of fact, it probably even would have been better to open with this match.
Yeah, especially since if this is your big coming out party, old Billy Watt. This isn't what people want on a pay-per-view, buddy. This might work on your TV show. This ain't gonna work on pay-per-view.
Well, my score overall for Beach Blast 1992, out of 5, I actually gave the show a 4.5. I really like this show. The only things that knocked points off were, as we said, the positioning of Gordy and Williams and the fact that Valentine and Bagwell was on the show. Other than that, I really liked this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I gave it a solid B+. And that was just because, like you said, Hammer and Bagwell being on it. I didn't like the match being the draw at the end of it. I honestly put Hammer and Bagwell as being like the worst match on the show. And I thought, even though I really like Sting and Cactus and the tag team match, my favorite match was Steiner and Steamer and Rick Rude. So I have there's no, other than some placement, there's no really bad you can say about this pay-per-view.
No, it's a really, really good wrestling show. And I mean, even with Bagwell and Valentine on there, every wrestling show has a Bagwell Valentine,
I'm not even saying it was like a shitty stinker match or whatever. You know what I mean? It was just I don't know why this is here.
It was weird it was weird that it was here.
Yeah. Like, I don't know why you're here. Like, who invited you to the party? I don't know. Just don't overstay your welcome. And they didn't. But it was just, if you got to pick something out of it, it's like, well, this is the one I'm going to pick. Because this was kind of like whatever.
Well, I'm going to promise everybody that next week's show,
excuse me,
the show that we're going to review next week, I can almost guarantee, without a shadow of a doubt, is not going to get the high marks that we just gave this show.
There's probably going to be a little more humor to it.
And next week, we will be covering Bash at the Beach 2000. And everybody knows it's one of those infamous nights in professional wrestling history. The elephant is in the room. It is the night with the Vince Russo, Hulk Hogan shit. But there's a lot of other garbage on that pay-per-view. And there are a couple of shining moments, but that's what we will be reviewing next time. We began with Beach Blast 92, and the reign of this series ends with Bash at the Beach 2000. Aaron, any parting words for our listeners before we sign off this week?
Just that this is kind of a new concept. We're not going to do it all the time, obviously, but it can be anything that's available for us to watch, of how it started, how it ended. It doesn't even have to be a company that's expired, you know what I mean, or out of business. It could be a WWF or a WWE pay-per-view or that started, and now it's like one of their, what do they call them? Like, I forget what they call them now, but
like a legacy pay-per-view.
Yeah, their legacy pay-per-view that no longer exists, or this is the first episode of a wrestling show. Like, this is the first WCW Saturday Night. This was the last WCW Saturday Night. But if anybody has any suggestions that they'd want us to do with those, that would be cool. If you wanted to ever just put that on the Facebook page or whatever. But other than that, just thank everybody for listening, and I'm looking forward to next week. Gonna be ridiculous.
And I just echo Aaron's statement. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you enjoy the shows, if you enjoy We Can't Wrestle, if you enjoy Reliving the Extreme and what we do here at the WNR Podcast Network, tell your friends. As I always say, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your mama, tell your mistress. The best way to help us here is to tell people about the shows. Tell them to check us out. So And also, if you're not a member, you can join our Facebook group, the WNR Podcast Facebook group. We're out there too. So that being said, we will see everybody next week with Hulk Hogan, Vince Russo. The bullshit of the politics in the back is coming up next week.
It's going to be a migraine.
We'll see you next week, everybody, here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast.